The housing crisis in Providence is as bad as it's been as far as anyone can remember, and it's both rental and home ownership. We need to be building more both homes for home ownership and apartments for rent. Right now, the only new buildings, the new apartment buildings that are being built for students whose parents pay the rent. And many of them are receiving tax subsidies. We should be thinking seriously about only providing subsidies to incentivize construction where families can actually live. Not studios or efficiencies where you have two or three bedroom apartments where families can actually grow up and raise a family. And we will not be able to bring rental costs down until there is more apartments available in Providence. There are people moving here from across the country, and I'm delighted that people want to live in Providence, but it is displacing long-term residents and people having a hard time finding a place to live. We need to also make sure that we're creating housing at every price point possible. That means low-income housing, that means moderate income housing, and that means market rate income housing. We have such a need at every single level. It's not about one side or another. We have need at every possible price point. And so the city needs to be working hard with our housing authority, with our nonprofit partners for deeply subsidized low-income housing, but also addressing what's referred to as workforce housing or moderate income housing, where you have a family of four with a household income of $80,000. That family is not poor, but good luck finding a place to live. And so there's a serious need there. And then finally, we need to make sure that homeownership is a real opportunity. That is still the primary way in which families build wealth. And as we look at families in our community, we want them to have a decent, dignified retirement or an asset to pass on to their children. And most families will do that through home ownership. And so we need to make sure that the banks are lending to low-income communities or to historically disadvantaged communities. We need to make sure that we're providing assistance in the form of down payment assistance. And in a housing market like this, there are qualified families in Providence, but they're competing against people who are paying cash, who are not asking for a mortgage, who can afford to waive these contingencies, and that's where the city can play a real role. Finally, there was a question about the Affordable Housing Trust. I think that money should be used to fill in what gap remains to make sure that projects happen. We have high-quality nonprofit developers and community partners who are doing projects across the city. In many cases, they're just a little bit short. The city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund is relatively limited in the grand scheme of things, and so those monies should be used to fill that final gap for projects that can be catalytic, for projects that wouldn't happen but for the city's investment. That's how we spread that out most fairly, and that's how we make sure that a lot of these projects that are almost there, they're at 90%, can actually happen, and we can meaningfully increase the amount of affordable housing and low-income housing in our city.